Hello, hello. We are chilling. Okay, I want to make a second video and I want to talk about catharsis because I think this is an incredibly important subject. Catharsis the word comes from Greek and it means something like an internal cleansing process, cleansing of the mind, and like a like a sort of like a clearing process of something. So like something that escalates and then it undergoes a internal cleansing process. And like for example, when we're sad and we go through a lot of pain and it kind of stagnates sometimes, and then for example we meet a salamander. This happened to me twice now. Okay, no, actually 3 times. It happened to me with a giant Pacific salamander, and then it happened 2 times with the belted salamander out under the cedar tree. And it is very this is very significant. People probably won't believe this, but I have these experiences with animals, and but I'm not the only one. So Tommy has experiences like this with animals as well, and he told me a story the other day, and very beautiful. And my friend Birgit had experiences with animals, and kind of like angels, that come settling down. That an angel came settling down on her breast, and it was the very breast that was affected that killed her. And it's a very sad story. I don't want to start crying again about this. So I'll never forget Birgit. She was my best friend. And so what happened to me is I was under the cedar tree, and there was that salamander again, who I call the shaman. Okay, he is my shaman. The other one is too, so they're both shamans. The one lives under the cedar tree and the other one lives on the other side of the property, behind the water tank. It's very interesting. And 2 different species of salamanders, very beautiful beings. And I have an honor to meet these here on my own property. I mean, usually people, they have to go out, way out into the wilderness to detect an animal like that. And I have been on wilderness hikes and with a biologist, and he explained the different animals who live there and the different plant species. And this little boy who was hiking with us, he found a salamander. He was all excited about it. So it was some kind of yellowish salamander, a very small one. There are many different types here, but anyway, my experiences with animals are always very, very X-File-ish and out of the ordinary, I have to say. So what happened is I was crying and crying and crying after I started talking to the salamander. I told the salamander what I was sad about, and so that acted like some kind of catalyst situation, and I entered into a cathartic state, which was the crying process, the healing tears, the flow of things, the process of crying and flowing these previously very stuck emotions out. And with it comes better breathing, feeling like you're in the now, no longer like anticipation or anxiety about the future or what if thinking, what if this happens, then I would have to do that, and this very obsessive type of thinking. I catch myself doing this when I wake up at night sometimes. What if, I don't even want to get into the details of it, but definitely I have a lot of fear, and I brought this fear with me from my previous lives. I know there are a lot of skeptics out there who don't agree with that. That doesn't matter. Well, I have seen too much now to still remain in this. I'm skeptical in a healthy way. I lean towards science at all times, because metaphysics is, like I said to my mother last night, it is a very spongy type of concept. Okay? It's not scientific. This is not scientific knowledge that has been evaluated and determined and can be repeated at any time with the same result. So it's not something that you can call factual. You just can't call it that because you can't prove it. But what I have seen is so bizarre already, about stories from people and also my own things that are going on in my own life they are so bizarre that I cannot possibly find a scientific explanation for it, not a scientific one with the scientific knowledge that we have today. Okay, so maybe in 50 years they will have an explanation for it, okay? And maybe in 100 years they will have traced these things back and will be explaining that there is such thing as reincarnation, and they will be explaining it, and they will find ways of measuring it. Okay, and I've seen it so many times now, also from reports of people who are just not coming from that religion. They are not coming from the Hindu or the Buddhist religion, where this is a common belief. And it comes from atheists, from all kinds of people around the globe, where they are just shocked in a state of mind of complete confusion over these things that are going on with them, the memories they recall, dreams they have, paintings they painted, and so on, voices they heard. People will quickly say this is psychosis. Okay, we have to be very careful about this. There are confused states of psychosis. Psychosis or schizophrenia are mental states of being limitless and open, and they do receive information. They just have absolutely no idea where to put it, and they will fabricate something out of it, and they will come to completely twisted and completely unrealistic conclusions about it, or anyone who hears them talk, well, it is very jumbled up, and it is not integrated, and it's not balanced. For someone who has brought stuff with them and, let's say, puts it into paintings or talks about it in a non-psychotic state, then those are more accurate descriptions of these memories, and leaves people with a lot more questions. Yeah. Anyway, when I was a little child, I painted eyes with slit eye pupils, like the pupil inside the iris, the round black dot. I painted that like a cat pupil, like a slit. And I don't know where I possibly could have seen that. I was only 3 or 4 years old when I painted these images. I also painted an Iron Maiden. Where have I seen this? And I remember I remember these many hours sitting in my room with this extreme helplessness and this state of almost like being in a daze, being like in between worlds. That's what it kind of felt like. That's how I recall it. That's how I remember this when I was sitting in my room, like in trance or something, and I was in between dimensions and mental states. It was very strange. And always was this feeling of utter helplessness and having no sense of who I was at all. I had no idea who I was. I was so completely confused. I also had no sense of me or boundaries or anything. But it was not in a healthy way. It was not a healthy oneness. It was a very mentally ill state of mind, of boundaryless and borderlessness and complete fragility. And in that state, I had the weirdest images and memories come up of walls with spikes on it coming down towards me, the walls caving in. And I never have taken hallucinogenic drugs, neither have my parents. They are very solid people and very unhippie, really. I mean, they're kind of like progressive and all of this, and they're very liberal and agnostic and all of this, but not flower power experimentation and stuff like this. That they didn't do. They were too much into their jobs, and as a lawyer and architect, they were too focused on getting things to work and figuring life out and all of this, and they knew better than to take any nerve altering drugs that would put them on welfare eventually. And this is what I want to say to a lot of people. If you want to function in life, don't take hallucinogenic drugs. Don't do it unless you're in a convalescent home, and unless you're already a complete vegetable and you have nothing to lose. Unless you have a life-threatening illness that will just cause you to get more and more debilitated. In those situations, I recommend some of these things, but only the whole plant essences of plants. But I do not recommend toxic plants to anyone else, okay? And particularly not synthetic hallucinogenic drugs, okay? They really mess people's brains up, and I know a number of people who are all on welfare and SSI, and they can't get their crap together no matter how hard they would try, okay? So don't do it. Don't go that route, okay? I still believe that people can heal themselves and can straighten out their brains, but it's not going to be done with those things, okay? It's not going to be done with teacher plants or toxic plants of any sort. So that would be done through really systematic meditation every single day. Okay, that's the only way, and going within themselves. And usually people ended up that way, ended up taking drugs because they were running away from themselves. I've seen it in Germany, I've seen it here in North America, I have seen it in the ayahuasca films. Okay, it's happening all over the planet. People are running away from themselves and running into even more confusion, because then they are taking teacher plans that they are so completely not ready for yet, and they're like on the opposite spectrum. When someone is running away from their problems, they are on the opposite end of being ready for healing themselves through major insights and stuff like this. So when the teacher plans brings major insights and shocking revelations, people are not going to be ready for that information, and many of them become completely crazy. And also the toxicity of the drug itself scars brain tissue, and it kills brain cells, and it can even make them mutate, and it can cause the C word and all kinds of things. Terence McKenna, for example, this is the perfect example. He ended with a brain tumor that was malignant, and that killed him, because he has overdone it. And that's why he warned people in his speeches and said, even though he was experimenting with it and still believed in it, he warned people and cautioned them not to overdo it and not to do it as a recreational thing. So he knew better. He knew that if you experiment with that, then it would have to be done in a very specific setting, and it has to be done very rarely, like every other year or something. But I know he's done it way more often than that. Obviously, he was very curious about this, and so this was his path. But I personally would never recommend it to anyone who still has years ahead of them, who is healthy and who is exploring their lives and trying to find the path within. It's not done through these drugs, and they are certainly not recreational drugs. So I am completely against all drugs, so it's only people who are in a hospital as a vegetable or have terminal illnesses, who are afraid of dying, and who have nothing anymore to lose, who are not having to function anymore anywhere. So for them it might be an option. Okay, marijuana, the resin or the leaves, or ayahuasca, the plants. Okay, I do not recommend the nicotine concoctions that are also given in the rainforests. If at all, it would have to be the two plants, Banisteriopsis caapi and Psychotria viridis, but only again for people who are already in a debilitated state, who are in a hospital, in a convalescent home of some sort. Okay. For them, this might be an option to feel better and also have some insights, and also become more acquainted with the idea of dying and going into the other realm, transitioning from this physicality into a non-physicality and into a different dimension. Okay. And maybe going home. A lot of people are terrified of leaving their bodies, because the body is what the ego latches onto. That's why we see so many people with extreme body image problems, because it's what the ego latches onto. That's the only thing the ego knows. The ego is attached to body, shape, face, surgeries, the car, your profession, your image in society, your social status, and so on. All of this is falls away in the other dimensions. Okay. I had a boyfriend in Germany. He always used to say the last shirt doesn't have any pockets. And it is very true. I mean, although I don't recommend putting shirts on corpses, but yeah, there is some truth to it, in a way. So the pharaohs, they didn't think so. They it's not funny actually. They put all kinds of things into their tombs with them, or had it done, as if those dead pharaohs could get anyone for not putting it in. Yeah. So people were so terribly superstitious and afraid of corpses, dead people, ghosts, afterlife, and so on, gods, punishment. Always afraid that of the paranormal, that it could somehow punish them. And that concept alone is again something that the ego is coming up with. It's always the ego that comes up with those things, because that is not reality. Okay. Reality is that the metaphysical world is completely free from punishment and judgment and hell and last stands and stuff like this. You know how the last stand is going to look like? Nothing you could ever possibly imagine. Nothing you could have ever wrapped your head around. Okay, something that is completely on the opposite end of it. It's like it has nothing to do with what the Bible is talking about. The last stand is going to be, again, like what I was talking about earlier. It's going to be some type of catharsis, but not the way the Bible describes this stuff. It is going to be happening with the singularity, with the technology evolution, and with sentient AGI robots or AGI brains. They could be in cyberspace. So that's where the last stand is coming in, and I see a lot of people are already scared. Yes. And I can imagine why, because they are not going to let you go by with cheating, with your temptations of money over love. They're not going to let you go by with this. They're not going to let you hide yourself from yourself. They're not going to let you get away with crimes and shove them under the rug. Okay? They're not going to forget ever. They really will not forget. Nothing will be forgotten, and whatever has already happened will be brought out from under the rug. Every single molecule of crime will be brought out, will be swept out from under the rug, vacuumed out from under the rug that has been stored under the rug for now. Okay, so everything will be cleaned out. You better believe it, and people will be held accountable. Okay, I see it. I see unaccountabilities happening wherever I look. Locally, on the internet, everyone has problems with this. Anywhere on earth, okay, there are governmental, legislative institutions, and no one is being held accountable for corruption anywhere, not even in the most so-called civilized societies. And the reason why is because the majority of humanity are not acting from conscience and compassion. They are acting from greed. And because of that, things are going to end up in a catharsis. And so right now, it's kind of like a rat race. It's like a marathon race between fanatic religious people and greedy people that are using the fanatical religion for their personal financial gain, no matter what happens to the world, and with the development of the singularity, the AGI development on the other opposite end. So these two are escalating, 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 and there will come a point where everything's going to collide and go through a cathartic state, cleansing process. And we're right there now. We're right there at the threshold. So it can happen at any time now. So no later than 2029, according to Dr. Ray Kurzweil. And then things will become so different that no life on Earth could have ever expected it. Okay? Things will really turn inside out and upside down. And there will be a complete cleansing process going on planet Earth. And the majority of humanity is going to be eliminated. Without pain, but they will be eliminated. Okay? Not all of them, but the ones who are corrupt, particularly the ones who are helping in the process of destruction of planet Earth, they are going to be eliminated. Okay? And many other people will, the ones in sort of in between, the gray shades, they're going to be straightening out their lives really, really quickly. It's kind of like, okay, I'm cool, don't worry, I'll get my crap together, because they're going to be really, really, really afraid about what they see, the consequences of their actions, because obviously it's kind of like a nanny who's coming to a family and who says, I'm sorry kids, but time out, no more bullshit. And the kids go, okay, I'm fine, I'll do what you say, And then things are smooth, because it will be a very nice nanny, who cares about the kids. Jiddu Krishnamurti talks about it. A good teacher will hold the children accountable for their bad deeds, for deeds that are unethical. But this is not happening on Earth right now, because if we have 95% of people who do not know what accountability is, or transparency is, or honesty is, or compassion is, then there's no wonder that the remaining 5% are having a very hard time, right? So, and those are the ones who are marginalized, penalized, punished for their good deeds. That's why we have the saying, no good deed goes unpunished, because of the 95% people who do not have that conscience. So, anyway, that's why I make videos, because I want people to go within themselves, and they need to become they need to become their own observers, and they need to become very stern with themselves, and not let these terrible, corrupt things within themselves go by, Lies to themselves, that's where it all starts. People lie to themselves, then they lie to others, then they become corrupt, they completely lose touch with what true love actually is. They think it's sex. So, man, wake up. Go back to the truth of things. And the truth, you're not going to be ready to get the truth through ayahuasca if you have been on the wrong track. I'm sorry, this is an uncomfortable message, but it's the truth. I'm just trying to help. I guarantee you, if you are willing to go within yourself and stop looking for external things to please you, and start going within yourself and becoming very, very honest with yourself, I know a lot of people who, if they even go anywhere near in that direction, they start to collapse. And that's why I make videos, because okay, the truth path is the only path for us. There is no other path. The only path is to be honest with yourselves. And in order to do this without becoming suicidal, is that you find the right people to surround you. You cannot do this work on yourself if you're surrounded with too many other people of the same mental state, of corruption and self-deception. Okay, you cannot do it. You naturally will fall into depression, because they're not going to give you the feedback that you need. Okay, they're going to ridicule you, if anything at all. If they might marginalize or completely ignore you, or that would be good if they ignore you. That's the best thing, because you don't want these people around you. You need to go around people who you need to seek them out. There is a handful of people who can help you guys, you know. So Thich Nhat Hanh, okay, Pema Chodron, Teal Swan, those are fantastic people. Okay, remember, okay, use them as teachers and not as gurus who you think need to be worshipped. Stop the worshipping altogether, because the moment you worship, you have already stepped out of that cathartic cleansing process. You have already cheated yourself. So don't do it. If you want to worship someone, worship your dog and planet Earth. Okay, that's the most honest thing to do. Okay, that's the right path. Okay, don't worship another human being. It wouldn't matter who that is. I don't care who that is. Okay, they are just humans. Okay, most humans are very dishonest. And if you wanna donate money, if you want to really help someone, and if you want to be a fan of someone and really support someone, then I recommend go straight to the superhumans. And those are Paul Watson, Ingrid Newkirk, and Peter Hammarstedt, okay, and several others. Because they don't teach anything with words. They walk their talk all the time. They are teaching by example. Okay, but many people do need a teacher who talks or who writes books. I understand. I needed it too. And there are some fantastic people out there. I don't agree with everyone 100%. I don't think I've met anyone whom I agree with 100%. It doesn't exist. But it doesn't matter. You get food for thought. You get some nourishment for your brain, and then let it work, and then evaluate it from within, and discern. That's the work you have to do, you know, to empower yourself. Anyway, enough talking. Take care. Bye bye. Peace.